that we're going to hear today is Acts 17, verses 22 to 31. The longest journey can be the shortest distance. The longest journey can be the shortest distance. Think for a minute about the message of that phrase. The journey around us and within us can be the longest journey, but it can actually be the shortest distance. A big reason God is not more real, perhaps, is that we tend to only look for God in remote places, distant places, instead of looking for God around us and within us. Think back on the last 7 days where you have felt God's presence. And then think about if you've ever noticed how the places that we celebrate as perfectly gifted with the qualities that raise our spiritual journey and bring peace to our soul seem to be thought about often as faraway places, places that you have to travel to. You know, you listen and people make these spiritual journeys to the mountains of Tibet, the temples of India, or the deserts of New Mexico. We think about the Colorado Rockies as places for spiritual insight and renewal. But when was the last time that maybe you said to someone that you found the biggest spiritual renewal right in your own backyard? Right in Winfield? Maybe even in Topeka, Kansas? Green Bay, Wisconsin? White Plains, New York? Places that are ordinary. Wichita, Kansas? Ark City? Perhaps the reason that so many of us decide that setting out on a spiritual quest and going on a journey in search of God's perfect presence is simply that we think it's going to take too much effort to just simply be and dwell in the presence of God. Have you had quiet moments this week? Have you had an opportunity to dwell and to meditate and to simply be with God? Paul's speech before the Athenians dared each of us to look for the evidence of God in the midst of our ordinary, oftentimes chaotic lives. To not go out and look for God in these places that are far away, but to look for God and realize that what he claims is not an unknown God, but a God who is right there in the ordinariness of everyday lives through the Jesus that lives within us. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, "People of Athens, I see that in every way you are seeking to be very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at the objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, 'To an unknown God.' So you are ignorant of the very thing that you worship. And this is what I am going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, the Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples built by human hands, and God is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath, and everyone else and everything else. From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far away from any of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image made by human design and skill. In the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. For he has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. He has given proof of this to everyone by raising this man from the dead." This is God's word spoken for you, and the people say together, "Thanks be to God." Please bow your heads in prayer. Gracious and loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Are you ready to set out on the great adventure? Are you ready to set out on the most exciting journey of your life? These were the things that were going through Paul's head as he prepared this speech and this message. There is nothing more exciting in life than being a disciple of Jesus. Nothing more exciting and nothing more imperative than to set out into the world as a disciple of Jesus, knowing where God is within you, all around you, through you. Christ is in all spaces. So are you prepared? You can imagine Paul asking us today. Are you prepared to open yourself up to a journey, to a new sense of calling? Are you prepared to live as an Easter resurrection people? How is your sense of discovery? How is your sense of destiny? How is your sense of calling? There's a cartoon, a Pontius Puddle cartoon that begins with, "I wonder if God can really hear me." And the next frame shows Pontius Puddle praying, "Hey God, what should I do with my life?" And the third frame has a voice from heaven saying, "Feed the hungry, right and justice, work for peace." "Just testing," Pontius Puddle replies in the fourth frame. And the fifth frame says, "Same here," God says back. The extremes of life are this, right? Weddings, disease, death, funeral planning, worship planning, divorces, heart attacks, dinner, laundry, bath time, book reading, cleaning up the cat messes, more laundry, another pastoral emergency, cleaning up the dog sickness, finally bed or not, and then you ask in the middle, where was God? And you find the moments where you affirm that in every single moment of all of the messiness of life and the roller coasters of life, God is there. So where did you see God this week? Where did you see God? Shout out the moments for the next couple of minutes about where you saw God. Where have you seen God at work this week? I saw God at work in this church family, and people surrounding people in crisis and need. Where have you seen God this week? Where?
In the church office.
In the church office. Awesome. Where else? Where have you seen God? God is there. What? In the weather, okay.
At the Samuels.
At the Samuels, in the backyard, celebrating with the youth, families. Where else? Where have you witnessed God? Because God isn't somewhere far away. God is here, that short distance, right? God is in every single moment, every single mundane detail. God is there. Until a crisis hits, we may take our beliefs for granted. And then a crisis happens in a health situation, in business, or in relationships, and it knocks us for a loop, doesn't it? And everything that we think we knew, we realize we don't know it all. And so we fumble our way through a crisis. We fumble our way into the future, sometimes feeling blindfolded. Maybe we question our former beliefs, and then we find in the debris of uncertainty what we thought we knew, some underlying certainties of God's goodness and grace that we might have overlooked, right? And then other people come into our life through a community such as this one, and they help us to claim that God is there in the midst of it. And they wrap their arms around us and they lift us up as friends do with one another. And those are the moments. Those are the moments when we know that God truly has us in the palm of God's hands. Eventually, there's notions in our life in times of crisis that begin to shape our life, our reactions, how we react, how we help others react and claim. It becomes for us how we live out our discipleship. And that's what Paul speaks to us about. Welcoming ourselves to the new us, so to speak. The new us in the midst of all of the mundane in our lives. So think about the human condition. Think about the disciples to whom Paul speaks. Think for a minute about you being in that audience, imagining how you felt. Maybe isolated, maybe uncertain, maybe crying out that you feel abandoned sometimes by God. And then Paul gives this message, and Paul risks being rejected. He risks being rejected by all the Greeks by finally revealing to us in the audience that faith requires a leap. Paul sums up this speech and says, faith comes by leaping, by a leap of faith. It's a leap, right? I love the quote that I read that says it's a leap that catapults a believer over the final barrier of reason and logic. Verses 32 to 34, for me, seem to show a leap, right? So think for a few minutes about where you have leapt forward for Jesus, where you've had a leap of faith that God is with you in the midst of a crisis, perhaps, with you in the midst of trying to wrestle with a very difficult life decision. We'll always have enough belief to make a leap of faith. That's what Paul teaches us today. We have what we need right now to believe. To believe and to follow and to choose love. Choosing to love someone is a choice. It's a decision. One way or another, choosing to love Jesus. Choosing to love Jesus begins with a leap of a decision to love and to follow. My dad used to tell me that he had planned to have a house paid for and a car paid off and a certain dollar amount in the bank before he would ever get married. Well, as he said, after 40 years of marriage, he never would have gotten married if he waited for all those variables to happen, right? He never would have gotten married. Love is like that. Loving God is a choice. It's a decision. It's not a waiting for things to be exactly as we, with our limited perception, want them to be. We love God in the midst of all the mundane junk that we're dealing with, right? I love the quote that loving God is not about overcoming doubt or having all the questions answered. It's about knowing or having a belief that the ultimate answers to life are only known by God. God is here. God is in the midst of whatever you're dealing with. We can't prove or disprove the proposition that Paul tells us that he created us, that he's got the whole world in his hands. It's not a conversation of proof and making facts that seem like they're going to fit with reason. It's a matter of faith. It's a matter of knowing by faith and looking around you and within you that God is already there, that God is already here. So who needs you to affirm that for them this week? And where do you need to affirm it for yourself? Where do you need to jump up and leap up and follow? Let's bow our heads in prayer. Gracious and loving God, we thank you for coveting us, for claiming us, making us, and breathing life into us. We ask, God, that you would continue to remind us of your presence in the midst of all of the ordinariness and the extraordinary times that we find ourselves facing. Allow us to be your disciples who are okay with the mystery of you, the mystery of how you work, and yet affirm and rejoice that in all things you are working for good. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.